brought to us by our friends at Smith's. Low prices and market fresh. Great to have you in with us here tonight as we broadcast live from the Huntsman Basketball Center here on campus. The basketball practice facility, the offices of the basketball team for the next hour or so. We'll talk some Running Utes men's basketball as they come off the road trip to the Northwest, where they got beat last night by the Oregon Ducks and Thursday by the Oregon State Beavers. Come back home this week to play UCLA on Thursday night, and then they'll take on the USC Trojans on Sunday, yet another Sunday game. So we'll talk about those coming up. We'll go word our players of the week and some other stuff on the program and just kind of go in that direction as the show rolls along today. Porter, if you can fix my ears just a little bit, and I think my mic's a little hot as well. I think the mic.
Surgery?
Yeah. Can you, does that sound a little hot to you?
What does hot mean?
Means kind of crackly?
Yes.
Yes.
Reverberation.
Yours too. So why don't we fix those mics, and we'll be good to go. Anyway, welcome in the coach. And by the way, our game on Thursday night brought to us by our friends at Pepsi and Aquafina. When you're not looking for a soft drink, but you're looking to hydrate a little bit, Aquafina is a great Pepsi product, and you can hydrate that way. Coach's show is underway here tonight. Larry Krystkowiak with us. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing a little cleanse.
Are you?
Speaking of juice. And
yeah.
Stuff, so, yeah. Trying to blow out the pipes.
How's that going? When did you start?
About an hour ago.
Okay. So we're an hour into the cleanse.
Yeah.
So we
should be safe.
Yeah, that should be fine. I want to catch up with you on Wednesday or Thursday. How many hours? How many days?
Well, I'm doing 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
So by game day, you'll be hopefully the pipes cleaned out.
We'll see.
In a better mood again.
Everybody gets affected a little differently. So,
what prompted this?
Oh, I'm fat. Just plain and simple.
Yeah.
Trying to look good for my bikini in Vegas.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
As you get that cabana out by the pool after your team wins a couple of games, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's the plan.
So the cleanse is underway, and
maybe it's fitting our team could use a little cleanse.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about, we'll obviously talk about the results a little bit. I want to kind of go over some of the guys and where they're at in the season tonight on the show as well, just a little bit too. But just kind of give me an idea that losing's tough, but you've won at home. You've only got one loss all year long at home. You're 10-1 at home, but on the road now you're 1-8. And the losses have been tough losses because there haven't been that many close losses on the road. They've been games where you've competed for a little while and then they kind of got stretched out. Last night was kind of an example of that. You were close.
USC.
And USC. Yeah, USC would be the one, yeah. But last night was interesting because you didn't necessarily play great. They hit a bunch of threes early, but there were a couple of segments in the second half where you had 2 possessions to make it a kind of a 6-7 point margin, and then there were turnovers, and as we know, Oregon makes you pay for those turnovers and hit some buckets. But give me an idea of where you guys are with these road games, and you mentioned the guys maybe needing a cleanse too, flushing some of the bad out and bringing some good in.
Yeah, I mean, it's always I watched the game on the flight home from Eugene last night, and we did a lot of things positive against a team that hadn't lost at home, and Oregon's a top, whatever they are, top 15 team. But they've got some elite players, and, we played a lot of zone in the first half. They hit 10 threes, and in watching those threes, they had 2 in the first half that we missed layups, and we were kind of boggled up getting back in transition. So that was 6 of their 30 points in first half threes, and then there were 3 off of offensive rebounds, 4 total in the game off of offensive rebounds, and 2 in zone breakdown. But yeah, our zone was good. Pritchard had a couple shots from 25 feet, and Mathis, who we knew was a shooter, it just takes a split second when you're watching film with our guys. You just turn your head for a second, and that's the margin of error when you're playing an elite team. And it was a little bit funky for us offensively, but we got in a nice little routine and cut it to 7, and then had two costly turnovers, a travel and we threw one at the referee.
He was open.
Yeah.
To Timmy's credit, Greg Nixon was open on that sideline.
Yeah, we did a really good job, I thought, in handling the pressure. We had 7 turnovers against Oregon in the first game, and only had one turnover against their press in the second game, so that wasn't the deal. We out-rebounded them, but the difference in this game was some big-time players hitting some open threes, and that was really, that when you think about that, that's 30 first half points that they made, and then there were some one-on-one breakdowns, as there always going to be against Oregon. But we need to sort some things out from an offensive point of view, and simplify some things and try to find an identity moving forward. That's what I've spent the day watching film and pondering. And I think I've kind of come to the realization, at least this is what we're going to go with, is that we need to probably give our players less freedom and put them on some railroad tracks and put them in the spots that we want them, and execute and screen and perhaps slow the game down at times. We've tried to run and score in transition, because scoring in the half court hasn't been easy, and that may be counterproductive. Try to find a little bit of blend, and we get more baskets at home in transition. But yeah, I mean, it's I would maybe a little bit of it's some confidence with individual players, and some of it's the responsibility of coaches to make sure that we're really clear with what it is we're trying to do, and finish this thing off. We've got 5 conference games in Vegas. We haven't shot the ball well in a while, and I'm hoping that can be a little bit like baseball, where you have some ebb and flow and some cycles, and certainly we want to be shooting the ball well right now, and we're going to do, as a coaching staff, everything we can do to help put our guys in positions and try to finish this thing off on a high note.
You knew you had a young and inexperienced team coming into the season, very little experience coming back from last year's team. Did you think by this point in time of the year you'd still be struggling with an identity?
No, it's probably, I don't want to, that's pretty broad,
right?
The identity part of it. I think we know when we're good and what it is we do when we're good. We've just it's just been a little bit more funky on the road, for us. And I didn't ever want to be a team where you're gaining energy and playing with energy when your shots go in. And we had a little example at our shoot-around where the gym was really quiet, and the one team at one end was making all kinds of noise, enthusiastic, and the shots were going in.
Right.
And the team at the other end wasn't really excited about much. And my comment, maybe that was an opportunity to share with our listeners and the team, was, I think you got to play with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And would we be playing in a shoot-around with this same type of enthusiasm if we were back at the Huntsman Center? Maybe that's it, is you almost have to trick yourself. And so, it's not a man overboard kind of thing. And I do think we have an identity, and I think we have a responsibility as coaches moving forward in the latter part of this season, is to make sure that we get everybody to the right spots. And we have, as in football, you've got the option A, option B, option C, and I think we've kind of evolved too. We're getting pretty good post play out of Brandon Carlson down low, and we need to throw him the ball more. Mickey's super efficient. We need to throw him the ball more, and so some of these things have kind of evolved as the season's gone on, and now we've got to try to tweak our identity a little bit and lean on each other some more.
You say simplifying and trying putting guys in certain spots, and maybe cutting some of the freedom down a little bit too. Do you get a sense some guys, without saying names, are trying to do a little bit too much?
For sure.
And maybe that's why we're getting some of the turnovers and seeing some of those things?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And we have to have a trust in each other. Our numbers aren't great, shooting percentages, and assist to turnover, and certain things need to be much better. So you get into a road trip like that. Both those teams are good. We didn't play very well against Oregon State. Got really funky in that game with some zone and some changing Ds, and our guys, I think we had 18 turnovers in that one. So we've had bits and pieces of things, and now we need to piece it all together. We need to kind of start filling in the puzzle here and get after it.
Yeah, the final scores were pretty similar, 18 and 19 points, but I actually thought you played better in the game yesterday.
No doubt.
For stretches than you did on Thursday night.
Yeah, we played really good defense. I mean, did a lot of things. We competed and we fought, and that's what we discussed in the locker room after the Beaver game. There's this mental toughness. You got to be able to grind, and when things get bad, you got to be able to fight back. And we were fairly weak on Thursday and Sunday. We had a couple good practices at the Portland Trailblazers facility, and I thought our guys came out, and that was a situation where a team hits 10 first-half threes, you can kind of mail it in. And, and we didn't do that, and our guys kept fighting. And again, we did a nice job rebounding, and we had a presence in the post. We just have to lean on it more. But it was two different games, you know, and regardless of the score, it didn't feel like an 18-point game last night. It felt like we were far more competitive and made some plays. And you know, they went from 65 to 80 pretty quick with free throw line and some late threes.
You and I talked a little bit about him last week, and we talked on the pregame show yesterday about him. But Peyton Pritchard kind of showed why yesterday. He's got to be probably, at least if not the guy on the short list for Player of the Year in the conference this year, and certainly a chance for an All-American bid too.
I think so. I mean, I love everything about the kid. Competes, and he does it with a, you know, you've seen a few things where he gets excited in certain road arenas, and you know, but that enthusiasm's good. But for the most part, how can you not like a kid that just is laser focused while he's playing? You know, offense, defense, knows when he needs to score, as was the case here at the Huntsman Center when he stepped up and made some big threes late in that game. But he distributes the ball, and he's got those numbers nobody in the Pac-12 has ever had. That.
1,700 points, 500 rebounds, 600 assists.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
It's really impressive.
You think about the history of this league and the players who have played in this league, and nobody's ever done what Peyton Pritchard's done.
Yeah. And, you know, last year led him to the Sweet 16. You know, I mean, that was a team that I think won 10 games in a row going down the stretch, and he's won multiple state titles in Oregon high school, so he's a winner. And I told him in the handshake line that hopefully we didn't have to see him again. So,
well, Ryland said after the game, he's a guy that he's kind of looked at even when he was, you know, in high school. He was one of those point guards that he kind of had his eye on and said, I want to cut him out of my game after him.
Well, it's a good choice. And I told his father, Jonesy, at coffee on Sunday morning that I could remember watching Pritchard as a freshman, and it wasn't all rosy. He had some, you know, real solid performances, but he just consistently got better. And, you know, Ryland gets in the weight room a little bit, puts a little bit of body armor on him. But, you know, experience as a young freshman that he's gaining right now, and the point guards that you're going up against in our league, night in and night out. It's the old adage, if it doesn't kill you, it's just going to make you stronger and better. And I'm not going to bet against Ryland to you know, really be able to make some advancements.
It was interesting watching them battle yesterday. There were a couple of times where Pritchard got the better of him with a little jab step, and Ryland would kind of crumple a little bit. And then there were a couple of times in the second half, Ryland ball faked that three, and Pritchard went flying by him. Then he'd sidestep into a three.
Yeah.
They had a good little battle
and
yesterday.
He drew a couple offensive fouls. He was in Pritchard, and Pritchard pushed off to get open. And I think that's all invaluable type of experience. And the other thing that's so cool about Pritchard that you just don't, you know, people don't discuss, it's a 4-year kid.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and that's part of the reason that you have those numbers, that the longevity and the postseason and the things that he's been involved with that get those types of stats. But, you know, he's just stayed consistent with his effort and come back and gotten better every year.
Here's what I will say, too, for people that aren't sure if Peyton Pritchard can play on the next level. I think he can. He's just got to find the right spot. But there was a guard a few years ago at Arizona named T.J. McConnell. And T.J. McConnell didn't wow you with his athleticism. He didn't wow you with his quickness. He was just a competitor and a winner surrounded by a pretty good cast. T.J. McConnell's still playing in the NBA today. And he was a guy that played, I think, at Arizona for a couple of years, transferred in from Duquesne or someplace back east.
I think he was.
Was it just the 1 year he was grad transfer? But, you know, I'm not saying their games are similar, but people didn't look at T.J. McConnell and say, there's an NBA guy. but 5 or 6 years later, he's still on a team and playing. And I think Peyton Pritchard could do the same thing.
Well, like, you know, NBA executives are smart. It's that winning gene that for a long time, and you know, I think he's super cerebral and understands the game, and has a great chance. I'd be surprised if he didn't have a heck of a run in the NBA.
All right, let's take a time out here on the Coaches Show. We'll come back. We'll pass out our weekly awards, and I want to talk about a guy that made his return to Utah basketball on that Northwest trip. Booth Gotch got back. What was he doing well? Did he knock the rust off? And what does Coach want to see from Booth moving forward here? All that coming up here on the Coaches Show from Learfield IMG College. Riley, Larry Krystkowiak with you. Show brought to you by Smith's. Also brought to you by our friends at Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser. Enjoying one on game day is always a good way to go, but please drink responsibly, says our friends at Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser. Utes have UCLA on Thursday night and USC on Sunday. So we'll get to those coming up in just a few minutes. We've got to pass out our weekly awards. Player of the Week, which is brought to us by our friends at the University of Utah Health and Sports Medicine. You and I were just talking about at the break, it wasn't necessarily a great road trip, and nobody put up real big numbers, although Ryland had a nice day yesterday. But I think probably the most consistent guy for you in both games was Brandon Carlson.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he showed up both games, scored early buckets, and we need to throw him the ball more than we do and give him an opportunity down there. He's a willing passer as well, and we need an inside presence with these teams coming in here this weekend. Really big teams, rebounding teams, physical type team. So needs to continue that. But he's constantly improving. I think finding his niche and playing with some confidence and real cerebral as well, paying attention to things, and his defense is much improved. So he's very much on an upward trend.
Where are you seeing it the most? Is it a confidence thing with him? Is it a comfortability thing with him? Because again, not a lot of basketball in the last couple of years because of the mission. Where is it? What is it with him? Why is that switch, do you think, gone on?
I think it's multiple. He's playing the game lower, and he's seen enough tape now to know that when you put your guard down for a split second, you're going to be getting ducked in by a guy. If you're not paying attention and down in a shell in a low stance, ball you man kind of vision and seeing shots go up that he's not able to rebound. So a lot of it's starting. I've always said in years of, a lot of NBA talk, NBA coaches, everything starts with the stance.
Yeah.
And I think he's getting stronger in the weight room, but I think until he can start putting on some legitimate mass and be heavier without that stance, he really was in trouble, and now he understands that concept, and he's making, and with that's coming some confidence, and he's seeing the ball go in, legitimate post moves down there, and the one game he had with some block shots, he's doing a nice job protecting the rim, and is giving us exactly what we're looking for.
So Brandon Carlson's our University of Utah Health and Sports Medicine Team Player of the Week. Here's something interesting too. Sometimes big men, especially slight big men, shy away from contact a little bit, may try and put it up off the glass. I remember having a conversation last spring with Tommy, maybe it was this past summer with Tommy Connor. And you guys were just beginning to get Brandon back in the gym. He had back from his mission, back from the gym. I remember Tommy telling me, he said, this kid's got a little edge about him. He may kind of look like a choir boy, he said, but he's got a little edge about him. He's not going to go up and try and lay the ball in. He's going to go up and try and dunk it.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that in the last number of games, even against some big guys. He goes up, and when Brandon goes up, he's not trying to kiss it off the glass with a layup and a finger roll. He goes up and he dunks it.
Yeah, and he did that in high school his senior year too. He had a high number of dunks, and there were some plays this weekend in both Oregon and Oregon State that he flushed it. It was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
In traffic over some beefier guys. So he's long, and he can run and jump, and he's got decent hands, and I think he's getting his sea legs.
Yeah.
And I think he's starting to feel all those synapses fire, and he's able to get off his feet and have an impact offensively and defensively.
So who's going to be our Subway Sub of the Week?
I think we'll go with Mickey. Competed hard both games, and Fonz gave us a nice lift yesterday off the bench, scoring 5 points and scrapping a little bit. He's got a little spark to him. So Mickey probably be the guy. I think Fonz was the previous week, if I'm not mistaken.
He was.
So we'll spread it around a little bit.
Mikhail Yantunin, who really does do a lot of dirty work for you. You ask him to play, a lot of times when he comes in, he's playing the big guy. He's playing the 5 position. And he does a lot of banging and bodying and scrapping. He gets down on the floor, too. That's the other thing. For a guy that's 6'9" like Mickey is, he'll go down on the floor and get after loose balls, too.
Yeah, he gets after it. And one of the big things with Mick is there's a little bit of a European influence with some flopping and, some things that you can get away with in Finland and Europe that it's not really transferable here. And we've got to get him to go get the ball. He'd much rather play a little game of lockup with this guy and make sure neither of them get the ball.
And then somebody else grabs it.
Yeah, and the referees here always look for that hook and hold. And so he's been called for that a number of times. Some of his screens, he gets his booty out there and reverse pivots and picks the guy off. So he's making good progress. It's just a different style of game. And he's bigger and stronger. I think he grew up in Finland and was playing against men when he was back, 17 years old, and probably had to rely on trying to find some leverage any way he could. But, he's getting bigger in the weight room and stronger, and he's got to be one of those guys that maybe stays off the floor a little bit more and stays out of some twister matchups with guys to where both his hands are available and he can go snatch the ball. And I've been on both he and Riley as our guys that are playing most of the minutes at the power forward. They've got to go get more rebounds than one rebound every 6 minutes, and that's where we are.
Is that where they're averaging right now?
That's where they are, and that's not good. You know, that's a power forward number. If you're going to be a good rebounder, it's got to be a rebound every 4 minutes. And so I've challenged those guys, and we've done a nice job now the last 6 or 7 games. I don't know that we've been out rebounded, you know. So we've done a pretty good job getting rebounding. We still had a number of breakdowns yesterday. We're having a harder time with our perimeter players keeping their guys off the glass, and we as a team don't send our perimeter guys to the offensive glass to get rebounds, but Oregon State and Oregon do, and so you get kind of wired to not realizing you have to block out. When you guard yourself in practice all the time, your guy's never coming, and you build some bad habits. And we worked on it during the week, but it was really an Achilles heel, I thought, both Thursday and Sunday. You know, Ethan Thompson at the point guard goes in and gets rebounds. Peyton Pritchard, he's got 500 of them for a reason.
Exactly.
And you know, that's difficult. And yesterday, Richardson and Duarte and those guys went in, and we've missed a number of blockouts, and our perimeter guys have got to be dialed into that. But I'm proud of our big guys. I think we've done a pretty darn good job.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Booth Gotch returned to the lineup for Utah on the weekend. Where is he now? Where would they like to see him by the end of the year? And we'll go from there. UCLA on Thursday night. We'll talk about the Bruins and then the Trojans, too, and go around the league a little bit, too. All on the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's, right here from Learfield IMG College. Krystkowiak with you. UCLA coming in on Thursday night. Before we talk about the Bruins, it had been about 3 weeks, 4 games since you had your kind of your starting backcourt in and around. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on Booth Gotch returning on the weekend. You had him for about 22 minutes on Thursday night, and you had him for about 24 minutes yesterday. Didn't put up big numbers on either night, but the one thing he was a warm body that could go out there and at least give Ryland a break. So what did you see from Booth that you liked, maybe you didn't like? And moving forward, you've got 5 games left. Can you get him back to maybe where he was early in conference season?
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I've been here today watching film, and there's no school, and the guy's got a day off from that, and I heard the balls bouncing earlier and went down into the gym, and he's down there working, and he puts in a lot of time, and I think a little bit of rust. Didn't have a lot of practice prior to the Oregons, and so we're hoping that this is a big week, to get, and then we will have 2 of our next 3 weeks. We'll have significant time at home, and try to get him revved up and going. So a little bit of rust, it seemed like, but I think he's one of the guys that's got some experience on our ball club that we're going to need to bring to the forefront, closing this thing out. Being a sophomore that's played a lot of minutes, and we're going to hold the bar pretty high and hope that he can be one of the integral parts of some success going down the stretch.
Well, it was interesting because he began conference season with back-to-back really good games. He had 17 against Oregon State and then 24 against Oregon. And since then, Larry, it's 7 straight games with single digits, and he missed 4 games in there too. So I know that the knee was bothering him a little bit, and it's hard to tell if that played a role in it or what it was, or if he was just having some struggles. But he doesn't look like the guy we saw in some of the non-conference games where it's big scoring games, and even in early conference play. And I know that's one of the things you and your staff are trying to get a gauge on too.
Yeah, and you try to put him in positions to be successful and find some confidence, but yet coach him hard and expect certain things. And it's the same. It's not just Booth. It's the essence of a team is getting a number of individuals that are clicking and feeling good about their performance. That's what it boils down to, and we need to get a lot of guys to step up and shift it into 3rd and 4th gear and close this thing out, on a high note. I think everybody in our conference, everybody in America at this point is a little bit beat up, and I've always made the analogy that a season is a marathon, and we're within you'd see 3-4 miles left in this thing, really, at the end of the day when you do the tape on it. And it's important that we try to regroup and get fresh and reawaken and cleanse a little bit and, sprint to the finish line. Let's do it.
Brandon Carlson doesn't need to cleanse. Have you thought about doing a team cleanse since you're doing the cleanse?
We can give him some of our.
No, yeah, you don't want. I don't think you want to do any of that stuff. For those of you just joining us, Larry's on a 2-day cleanse.
Yeah, but I've only been on it an hour.
For an hour? Well, no,
so
an hour and a half. He started at about 5 today, so he's about 90 minutes into his cleanse. Is it one of those?
I'm out.
You're out already?
No.
Is it one of those cayenne pepper lemon juice cleanse?
Well, there's 6 different bottles of juice.
Okay.
So you drink them in order.
Okay.
I was supposed to wait till the morning, but I got a little jump on it tonight.
You're breaking the rules.
Yeah. Well, we'll make it work.
Okay.
There's 6 different, and it's not. There's a couple sugary, fruity ones, and then some that I think do more of the cleanse for you. The stuff that's less palatable. So I'll keep you posted.
Okay. I'll be looking forward to your texts over the next 48 hours. All right, let's grab a break. Utah's got UCLA coming up on Thursday night. The Bruins, they didn't start the era with their new head basketball coach Mick Cronin very well, but they've begun to play a little bit, and then maybe that light switch has gone on a little bit for the Bruins. So they've won 7 of 9. We'll talk about what's coming in on Thursday night. It's a late game, by the way, Thursday night. Just so you know, you might want to get that nap in. 8:30 start time Thursday night here at the John M. Huntsman Center against the UCLA Bruins. We'll talk a bit about Mick Cronin's team coming in next right here from Learfield IMG College. And our broadcast this week being brought to you by our friends at Redbox. Get all the latest releases just out of the theater movies. Stop by the Redbox locations or stream them on demand. I wasn't even aware till recently you could stream Redbox on demand. I thought you still had to go to, the McDonald's and the grocery store and grab those old DVDs, but no, you can stream them too. So Redbox is the place to get your movies. They're an official partner of Utah Athletics and the video distribution partner of the Pac-12. Speaking of the Pac-12, UCLA in the Pac-12, they've come on a bit as of late. Mick Cronin inherited a team that really wasn't his. You know what that's all about. You did that many years ago. And, there was some talent in that program, but early on it wasn't taken. And it took him a little bit of time, but I mentioned they've won 5 of 6 overall. Their only loss in that group was at ASU. They beat Arizona in Tucson. They beat you guys. They beat Colorado at home. This past weekend, swept the Northwest schools at Washington, and they've won 7 of 9 overall. So they're playing better, and you guys saw them firsthand kind of at the beginning of that streak down in Westwood.
They've got a nice team. I mean, Tiger Campbell is a point guard that killed us first go-round, and then they've got 3 really big bigs, presence in the post. They lead our league in a lot of the rebounding statistics. They're elite offensive rebounding team, and you've got some versatile guys on the wing. They can play small, they can play huge, and more than anything, I think he's got them playing really hard. And they went through some turmoil and some troubles early in the season, but they're defending and they're really executing, and everybody knows their roles, and they're a load.
Yeah, their leading scorer is Chris Smith. He's a guy that's been there a few years. He's 6'9", kind of a guard, hybrid, skinny 6'9" kid. Didn't do a whole lot against you guys the first time around. He got in some foul trouble. But you mentioned Tiger Campbell. Campbell's a 5'10". He's kind of, if you want a doppelganger, he looks like Bob Marley, to be very honest. If you look at him in the face, and he's got the dreads too, but super quick, not necessarily a great shooter, but he is hard to keep in front of you because he's really, really quick.
Yeah, and he's a good pick and roll guard. Assist to turnover ratio is good. And he's, he, like some of our freshmen, are really starting to make some progress and some strides, and they put the ball in his hands a lot, and he 9 out of 10 times he makes the right decision. So he's jet quick on defense as well. It puts some heat on you defensively, and is playing with a lot of confidence. So they've got it going on.
I'll tell you the guy I really like in their group. He's a freshman, and he hurts you guys a little bit. He was a double-figure guy, and he hurt CU too. Jaime Jaquez, the freshman out of Southern California. He's big. He's not built like a freshman now. He's about 6'6", and he posts up a little bit, and he can shoot it a little bit. I think he's a really nice piece for them.
No, and he's been one of those guys too. I think that it wasn't so evident in maybe the first half of the season, but he's been a guy that Mick puts on the floor a lot. He's a hybrid type player. He defends well with the size, and just as another shooter on the floor. His numbers aren't off the charts as far as the 3-point shooting goes, but he's very capable, a little bit streaky. But he's one of those guys that's on that freshman learning curve that's really starting to come together. What
did they have the most success against you guys the first time around that you got to fix and work on this time?
Well, it was a little bit of some plays in their pick and roll package. We call it Spain action, where you put a shooter below the big, and the big comes up and sets a mid-on ball for Tiger. They roll the big to the basket. You've got a shooter that's the replace guy at the top of the circle, and shooters in the corner. It puts you in a little bit of a quandary as to, how you're going to control the pick and roll. And we thought we had a good plan, and it was the prime example of just takes one guy, and you always talk about you need to guard pick and roll with 5 guys. And it was kind of a comedy of errors for how not to do it. And it was a different guy every time that messed it up, and they managed to score a high percentage of the time on that action. And then they got to the free throw line. We fouled them way too much in that game, and turned the ball over as well. But they're a load. They got it. They're clicking. I watched a bunch of their games today, and they're playing with more and more confidence. The Arizona game, when they went into Tucson, they manhandled them, and and Arizona didn't have an answer. And the thing that's really impressive is how they're playing defense, and they're such a long group. You know, they're big guys, with the exception of Tiger. They've got a lot of size and physicality at all those positions, and they do a lot of switching. They don't really care. They make sure that nobody's open, and they don't care about mismatches and make you kind of try to exploit that. So we're going to come up with the solid plan for Thursday night.
That was always what Mick Cronin hung his hat on at Cincinnati. I mean, they were a get-after-you effort athlete. He'd recruit a lot of long athletes, and they just play tough defense and force some turnovers. And I think I think maybe because UCLA hasn't always been known as that in recent years, I think there was a little bit of a learning curve down there, and getting those kids that didn't necessarily want to do it to buy in. But I don't know if they've completely bought in. But as you said, they're playing a little bit better, and with the length and athleticism they have, if they buy in, they can be pretty tough.
Well, and it validates, the style and what you're being asked to do when you win the games that they've won. I think that's the big thing, that if players are winning, it might not be a natural thing for them to buy into, but validates it over time. And I think that's what you're seeing is those guys that are all buying in, and you don't see much dissension, and winning will do that for you. So they're riding a wave right now.
Well, they're playing well. They've won 7 of 9. They're 15-11 overall, but they're 8-5 in Pac-12 play. Utes are 14-11, and flip-flop those numbers. They're 5-8 in Pac-12 play. Coming up on Thursday night, it's an 8:30 start time. We'll be on the air with our pregame show at 7:30 from the John M. Huntsman Center right across the way. Quick timeout. Back on the other side, we'll touch on a variety of things. A couple of more segments to go here on a Monday night. It's the Coaches Show from Learfield IMG College. tonight against UCLA, being brought to you by our friends at Pepsi and Aquafina. Hydrate yourself well, Utah fans. Well, the Pepsi and Aquafina, by the way, also. It could be a little bit of a later game. It's an 8:30 tip time. Might not end till around 11. You might need one of those Mountain Dew Code Reds to kind of get yourself all jacked up, kind of like Tommy Connor at a shoot-around, right? Yeah. Getting all jacked up, getting that game plan installed. Anyway, we're going to get Larry one of those after his cleanse. We'll get you a Mountain Dew cleanse for Thursday night's game against UCLA. You were talking about getting players back and re-engaged a little bit. Timmy's had some struggles in recent weeks. Now, he's had looks and opportunities, but the ball hasn't necessarily gone in. Everybody goes through that stuff. Give us an idea of where he's at, because he's been your leading scorer much of this year. He's been your leading rebounder too. Is he kind of trying to fight through a little bit of a tough time right now, at least on the offensive end? His defense hasn't been bad. He's been drawing some tough defensive assignments. He saw a lot of Trace Tinkle on Thursday night. But how are you working with Timmy to try and get him back on track offensively?
Well, I think, from a coaching perspective, you try to put them in positions where they can be successful and play to their strengths. It's been a little bit of a copycat type of league where, maybe early in the season guys were too close to him and he was great at getting to the rim. We're also looking at elite athletes in our conference, so there's not just the guy that's guarding him, but somebody meets him at the rim. And it's funny you ask, because I was just daydreaming about him during the last break and got a couple ideas for some drills to work on with him. But I think, there's a certain amount probably of pressing a little bit, trying to make things happen. The one thing that I've been really pleased with, in a number of our games is he's gotten 6 assists, and there's a game that he almost had double-digit assists in.
Yeah.
So he's a playmaker, and when 2 people come to him, I do think he's become a willing passer and a playmaker guy, knowing that we're going to need that ability out of him for our team to win. But honestly, I think there's been an awful lot of looks at the rim that were going in early that aren't going in now. Some missed layups. We had them over both games on the weekend. And so whatever it might be, stronger finishes, and those are some of the drills where we're going to get some bigger guys that are meeting him, and teams are doing a great job of jumping and creating a wall, and that's really hard to finish over some of that size. So maybe being a little bit more under control and getting moving full speed ahead in one direction, being able to stop on a dime and step through, and some of those counter moves I think are important. And then I think he's also shooting a high number of free throws. I'd like to see him get to the 80%.
Yeah.
Mark, where there's been a few games where it's 6 of 9 and 8 of 12, and the 66, those are free points that we're leaving on the board, and he was shooting free throws better early in the year. So that's the other thing when he does get fouled is making sure we're more productive. We had a number, the Oregon State game, when you talk about a big bugaboo, was we left 12 points. We had free throws and front ends, 4 straight one front end to 1-and-1s that we missed, and we had been leading the conference in free throw shooting. So we had a renewed focus of that in Eugene, and shot 80% the other night. Didn't get there enough, but it's really important when we get there that we have to capitalize.
And maybe going back to what you touched on earlier when you said you're going to dial the freedom back just a little bit. Don't force it if it's not there.
Right.
Timmy is number 1 on the scouting report. And when he drives, as you said, they'll make that wall. 2 or 3 guys are there. That means somebody's going to be open. Maybe 2 guys are open. So, maybe instead of looking to force that shot with 2 guys at 6'10" in front of you, maybe that's a kick or a fine. Because he is a good passer.
Yes, and he's grown, in super big strides with that. And it's not just the assists. Dave did all the numbers for us, does a great job, Dave Dunleavy, and when Timmy passes the ball, this was prior to this last weekend, I don't know where our numbers are now, but we shoot 48% from the field on his passes. So he doesn't always get an assist, obviously. Half the time we don't score, but half the time we do. And the efficiency that you'd have as an offensive team when Timmy passes the ball would put us in the top 10 in the country. So those are things to keep in mind. And then we've got to get everybody else firing. Booth and Ryland and those guys. Ryland had a good shooting night against Oregon, but had been struggling a little bit. So Jackson and Fonz and Riley Batten and guys that are capable of hitting outside shots. And we're putting enough time in. So we've just got to start believing in each other and not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but kind of stay true to what we're doing and then step up and make plays when they present themselves.
All right, speaking of elite athletes, there have been a lot of them down through the years of the Pac-12 since Utah's been in. One of them had a big weekend and may have gotten robbed. We'll tell you about that. Get Larry's thoughts on elite athletes in the league next as we wrap it up on the Coaches Show from Smith's from here at Learfield IMG College. Larry was referencing elite athletes in the Pac-12, and we've been doing Pac-12 games together for 9 years now, and we've seen a lot of elite athletes. I don't know that I've ever seen a better athlete just physically, and he was only 18, than Aaron Gordon when he was at Arizona a few years ago. I mean, he could guard a point guard. He could guard a power forward or center. He got second in the dunk contest, which I know you didn't watch on Saturday night, but he's still a crazy good athlete. Thinking back over the years, 9 years in this, or even if you want to go back to any of your coaching days, give me a guy that you just went, wow. In the layup line or wherever it was, you just kind of, your jaw just kind of went, holy moly.
Well, I actually coached one in the CBA. His name was Paul McPherson, and he was from DePaul.
Yeah.
And it was the best, to this day, it's the best dunk I've ever seen.
In a
and
game.
It was similar to what Aaron Gordon did.
Yeah. In
the one clip where he kind of gets shut off and he just throws it up on the backboard. Except Paul did it from the free throw line. And it was I got to try to find a copy of that. It was the nicest.
Paul McPherson.
Paul McPherson.
All
was
right.
about 6'5" and looked like a linebacker, lefty, but he was the best dunker I've ever seen.
Google him, boys and girls, Paul McPherson. Good luck with the cleanse.
Thank you. Go Utes.
Go Utes. We'll see you guys Thursday night at the Huntsman Center for Utah and UCLA. This is the Coaches Show from Learfield IMG College.